How is this problem different from the ones we've been doing? It's inequality, okay? Is it different to solve it? Not at the beginning, okay? Not at the beginning. So what's the first thing we always do when we solve absolute value equations? Isolate the absolute value. Is it isolated? Okay, so just like equations, we do the same thing with inequalities. What do we do next? A positive one and a negative one. So I write what was inside first, and then I write the negative of what was inside. Now, because of how I taught you, there's no rules to learn here. There's a reminder I need to make. Can we take a commercial break real fast? Okay, here's the commercial break. Is this a true statement? Is 2 less than 5? Yes. What if I multiplied both sides by 8? Is 16 still less than 40? Okay. What if I divide both sides by 2? A positive number, right? Is 8 still less than 20? What if I divide both sides by a negative 4? Is negative 2 less than negative 5? No, it is not. You've been told if you divide or multiply something by a negative number, you have to flip the inequality sign, right? Did you know why? This is why. Because it makes the inequality not true anymore. Okay? And this is just a real simple example of how I can show you why we have to do that. Okay? Unless we change the sign to be the other direction, the inequality is no longer true. You okay with that? Okay, back to the show. What do I do first right here? Add 4, add 4. X is less than 10. What do I do here? So we did this 2 different ways before, right? We divided by negative 1, or we distributed the negative. And later on, you're going to have to divide by the negative, right? So how about if we just get rid of the negative to begin with? Let's divide both sides by the negative. Negative 1, okay? If I do that, however, what do I also have to remember to do? I have to flip that sign to be greater than. I don't know why I wrote parentheses. Sorry about that. They don't need to be there. 6 divided by negative 1 is negative 6, correct? And now to solve it, I just add 4. X is greater than negative 2. Well, that's a good question, okay? When we solved equations, we were done, right? When we solve inequalities, we're better than this. So we want to do our best every time, right? There's 2 more things that we want to do here. Okay? We want to make sure that we ourselves understand and that our homework readers understand what the answer is. Okay? So the first thing we're going to do is draw a number line to represent this, a visual representation of the answer. So I've got 0, and I've got 10, and I've got negative 2. Once again, I'm not asking you to measure this out. I'm asking you to put it approximately where it needs to be. But for sure, make sure you have a 0 on your number line. Okay? If x is less than 10, what do I do at 10? So, open dot. And which way is true about that? To the left, right? I'm not going to completely shade right now. I'm going to show myself where I would shade. Okay? What do I do at negative 2? An open dot. And I would shade to the right, right? Is there a place then both areas would be shaded? In between them. So I darken that up pretty good so I know for sure that that's where I'm shading. The last thing we have to do is complete our answer. Complete writing our answer. Okay? We have to add a word to our answer. We're adding a word. Okay? The word is either and or. I have to decide, is this an and statement or is it an or statement? Is there a number that is less than 10 and greater than negative 2, then I write and. And on an and statement, we're also going to do one more step and write our answer in the best form that we possibly can. And here's the best form that we possibly can. That's the best form that we possibly can. Because that's showing you it's an and statement by saying x is between negative 2 and 10. Does that make sense? Okay. Yeah, you just have the word and right up here with this part of your answer. Okay? Let me show you one more example real quick. Do we have time? Okay. Thank you. Let's do 14. No, 16. That's better. What do I do first? Isolate it by dividing both sides by 2. Now, you guys know sometimes I ask you questions because those are the questions other people have asked me, right? Right? Okay. Do I flip my inequality sign right here? But I divided. I didn't divide by a negative. It's only if I divide by a negative, so this is still greater than or equal to. Everybody okay with that? Now that my absolute value is isolated, what do? So x plus 7 is greater than or equal to 8, and negative x plus 7 is greater than or equal to 8. You okay with that? Okay. So subtract 7 from both sides. X is greater than or equal to 1. Divide both sides by a negative 1. When I divide both sides by a negative number, I flip the inequality sign. Every time you guys have said flip the sign, I have said flip the inequality sign, right? Because some people were confused about which sign I was talking about. They thought maybe I was talking about the sign of the number. That's a pretty logical thing to think, because aren't I switching the sign of the 8 to now be a negative 8? So that's why I'm just making sure to clarify that I am talking about flipping the inequality sign. I know and you know that 8 divided by negative 1 is negative 8, right? Okay? Now when I subtract 7 from both sides, I get x is less than or equal to negative 15. Now, some of you already know whether this is an and or an or statement. Visual people typically like to draw the graph first because that tells them right away if it's an and statement or an or statement. Some of you can see it inside of your head, and if you can, that's great. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and draw the graph. I've got negative 15, I've got 0, and I've got 1. You know how sometimes in pre-AP you have a little extra stuff that you might need to think about? This is one of those places. And I'm going to show you this graph in the little extra stuff you might need to think about section. Okay? What do I put at negative 15? A closed circle. Okay? However, the other thing you might see instead of a closed circle is this. Remember when we talked about that when we were doing domain and range? Okay? And do you see why did I do it that way? Because I would be shading that way, right? Okay. What about the 1? What goes on the 1? Also a bracket or a closed dot. And I would be shading that way. So now it's time to shade. There's nowhere where they both are true, right? So this is or. Now, we rewrote our best answer up here with an and statement. Is there a way to rewrite it down here? Not for or, because that would be implying that the x value is between the negative 15 and the 1. Guys, there's no number that I know of that is greater than 1 and less than negative 15. What about you? You don't know of one either, do you? Okay, so this right here is actually my answer for my or statement. Okay, the one thing that I will caution you on, and it's just me saying be careful, because I'm not going to give you any examples about it because I want you to think about it. We will talk about it next time we meet together if we need to. is what happens if this number is a negative. I just want you to be cautious and think about it if you get to a problem where this number is a negative. Fair enough?